My name is Faris Al-Khalil, and I'm with ITIQ Tech Recruiters. We're happy to support BIV's CTO and CIO awards for 2020. We are a national recruiting company specializing in information technology recruitment. We provide IT professionals on a contract or permanent basis to our clients. Give us a call if you're looking to build a team across Canada or hire remotely. Thank you.
Hey, welcome to BIV Today, the daily business news show from Business in Vancouver newspaper and BIV.com. I'm reporter Tyler Orton, and this week, BIV is unveiling its 2020 BC Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer award winners. And with us today is our Startup CTO of the Year, Colin O'Connor. He's Chief Technology Officer at Precision OS. It's a cool startup company in downtown Vancouver. It's best known for developing virtual reality tools and simulations for surgeons. And Colin, I'd like to both congratulate you on the award and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me. And it's an honor and a pleasure to accept this award on behalf of the company.
Well, it's a very cool company. I've had the pleasure of writing about it. And from your perspective, what is it about virtual reality that you think is just so vital right now at this moment?
I think virtual reality is a great way to be connecting people, and remote collaboration is a key component of some of the learning that's going on right now. I think there's been a big push for different multiplayer initiatives and different ways to train and educate various users across the landscape.
And what has kind of the uptake been like, especially when we think of the impacts that the pandemic has had on the way that we all work and the way that we all learn right now? How is virtual reality kind of vital importance at this very moment in time?
It was a bit tough to begin with. As the pandemic first rolled out, I think it was a lot of our surgeries closed down. We work in the orthopedic medical space, and with a lot of the elective surgeries closed down, that side of the business really slowed down, and the medical device companies that we work very closely with had a hard time getting our VR headsets out into the field and training surgeons. But then as the landscape evolved, we worked very closely with various institutions, and it became important that the residents and the fellows continue to learn and evolve. So that's where the multiplayer initiative really came on board, and we managed to get our headsets into quite a few different universities across North America, and they're being used to do remote collaboration and remote training now.
Well, what's kind of fascinating to me is when you look at the company, one of your co-founders is a surgeon by trade as well. You have kind of the technical expertise. How do you guys kind of meld like the different visions and making sure that it works from a business perspective as well?
That's a very good question. I mean, education and training are the killer app for VR and AR as far as I'm concerned. But quite often there might be a product market fit, but then how do you monetize that? How do you bring that to market? How do you, make sure that, you can continue that work? So we've been working very closely with the medical device companies, and those are the companies that make the implants that go into the body, and they have unique procedures around arthroplasty, arthroscopy, which is joint replacement, and various things. So working with Danny, who is a practicing orthopedic surgeon and is in the OR a lot, we knew how to approach the medical device companies, and we were lucky that some of these medical device companies are at the forefront of VR and training and see it as the future. So working with the surgeons, a few of us have shadowed surgeons in the OR to look at their workflows to see what are the critical parts of their steps and how we can mimic that in VR. And it's been very rewarding.
I had the opportunity maybe a year and a half ago to go visit your offices. I was able to look at the computer monitors and see what you guys were developing, but maybe illustrate that for our listeners and our viewers. What is kind of the experience like once, somebody goes in for training in this virtual environment?
Okay, so we use game engines effectively for VR. There's Unity and Unreal out there, and we've got Unreal because it has a very high fidelity. Then we've laid in a medical grade simulation on top of that Unreal engine to procedurally manipulate bone and meshes so that a surgeon or a trainee can go in there with a saw and they can cut anywhere and ream anywhere, and more importantly, they can make mistakes. Right, so we're one of the only companies with VR training out there in the orthopedic industry that allows you to fail. And the ability to fail and repeat and learn has been coined double loop simulation. And it's one of the key differentiators in the company. So when you go into VR, we'll take you through the steps of a procedure, and it might be shoulder replacement, hip replacement, knee replacement. And there might be, say, 8 steps in that, but 2 of them might be critical, where you have to put a pin or saw in the perfect angle. 3D spatial awareness is very, very important for orthopedic surgeons, and some people come by it naturally and some people don't. So for those that don't come by it naturally, we provide a great platform to be able to train and make mistakes in a safe environment, repeat, and get better and better.
What is the experience like as maybe, I'm sure as a non-surgeon, you've given it a try, but if you're a non-surgeon, like using this, how may your perspective on it all kind of differ?
As a non-surgeon, I mean, in VR, we have the shoulder completely open up or the hip open up. So as a non-surgeon, it can be a little bit overwhelming to see big parts of the body, what I would call the approach into that area all opened up, and depending on the person, it can be a little overwhelming. But then we have step-by-step instructions, voice narration as well. They can guide you through that. It's a little bit daunting. There's a lot of medical terms flying around: anterior, posterior, lateral, medial, all these various things that a resident knows. So for the layman, it can be a little bit hard, but we are training nurses on the software as well. Nurses, surgical nurses that want to make sure that they're a couple of steps ahead of the surgeon. So they like to know the surgery quite well. So we've seen a lot of traction in that area as well.
Well, what was it that maybe drew you into pursuing, something involving VR surgery? Because I get the sense that that you're doing something that will make a difference and make things easier in people's lives. But I don't know. I don't want to take the words out of your mouth. What was the impetus for you?
Well, I've worked in the video game industry for about 24, 25 years and worked with interactive graphics. I've had various startup companies, and the last one closed down in 2016. And I wanted to make the shift into something that had a bit more purpose. I wanted to stay in interactive graphics. AR and VR lent itself well to that. But then a fortuitous chance encounter with Danny led us to brainstorming around education. He's a world-class educator. He loves education. And we were brainstorming around how we can do this more effectively. So I introduced him to VR, and it blew his mind. And he said, "This is the future of education." So, and then from that point there, we built out prototypes. Rob and Danny and myself built out various prototypes. We needed to make sure that we could get traction with the right business community. But most surgeons that go into VR, into these modules, once they've been in there, they understand it's the future of training. Yeah.
Well, you brought up the gaming sector, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started in New Zealand. What ended up bringing you out to Vancouver to kind of be here?
It's a good time to travel. I came here with a 1-year work permit, and New Zealand and Canada are both beautiful countries with wonderful people in there. And I managed to get a job at Radical Entertainment and was writing assembly code on the Super Nintendo system. So that goes way back now. So over the past 25 years, I've shipped dozens of games on most of the major platforms, and I ended up staying. I fell in love with BC, and the people here are incredible. I'm very lucky to be part of two amazing countries.
Well, how is it that, the gaming sector, and it might not seem super obvious to somebody who doesn't work in it, but how is the gaming sector, such a good, stomping ground for somebody who's now working in virtual reality?
We use a lot of the same technology. We need to be able to, how we lay out and build a orthopedic module is very similar to like how we might build a mini game. There are steps, there's a design. We have to figure out how they're going to interact with the tools in VR, their hands, getting the hands into the correct space. So a lot of the, VR is unique in that it needs to run very, very fast, 60 frames a second, 2 cameras. So the hardware has to be very good. You have to be wary about stability and optimizations. And then when the Quest came out last year, that removed one of our biggest friction points, essentially. Unfortunately, we had to connect a lot of our VR gear to laptops and sensors, and that was a big friction point for the medical device industry and for institutions that weren't used to that type of a tech setup. So when the Quest came out, which is an Android device, it removed a lot of that friction, and people can get into VR a lot quicker. But it's very hard to make VR software because it has to run very, very fast. So whatever simulations you have running on in the background, they need to be spread across multiple cores. You need to be utilizing the GPU very well. So a lot of the tools, technologies, and workflows we use to make games, we can make VR education software with as well.
Well, and maybe going back to the gaming discussion just a bit, I'm just curious, but as you said, you did dozens of games over across all the platforms you can imagine. Is there one in particular that, I don't know, was just really cool experience for you to work on and learn from?
So I started up United Front Games with about 10 other co-founders, and one of the first games we made there was, it was true crime at the time, but it ended up becoming Sleeping Dogs. And I worked for 4.5 years on that game. It was a long game. It's one of the hardest games I've ever shipped. And our team grew to a size of about 180 people. So we evaluated Unity, and we evaluated Unreal 3 at the time. This is going back 10 to 12 years. And we essentially wrote our own game engine from scratch for that, with world streaming and various things. So just the amount of technology behind that, your own rendering engine, and then all the tool sets, and it's an open world game. So it was an enormous undertaking, a lot of work, but it ended up being a very, very good game that was received quite well. So.
Well, as you made the transition to VR, was there something that you learned there that kind of surprised you, something you didn't even really think about as you were doing all this development that now you're glad to have known it, but maybe you wish you knew it at the time?
I think the thing that surprised me the most was just developing the user experience and the UI around picking up a tool. You're holding a controller and you have a tool in your hand. Maybe it's a saw, or maybe it's a different type of instrument. There's no way to give you haptic feedback on that as they go into bone. So we have to use other tricks. We have to, if you're drilling through the hard part of the bone, the cortical part of the bone, we do pitch shifting of the drill to make it sound like you're going through a harder bone. You don't want to plunge down the other side of that bone because the way you damage soft tissue and nerves and stuff like that. So using different audio, vibration, and other sensors, visual sensors as well, to try and feedback what you're doing, because we're designing around the limitations of VR, and there's no actual force on your hand. So that's been one of the biggest challenges in developing some of this software.
What was maybe... At this point, I know it's kind of like picking favorite children, but what would be kind of a career highlight so far working in all the different industries that you've been in?
I think this the software we're working on right now is to me the perfect culmination of all my experience up to date, including the business experience and the interactive experience and leading a team. and then targeting that towards a market that is ripe for innovation. The medical industry moves very, very slow, and that's one of the things that kind of took a while to adapt to. We're used to getting projects from publishers up and running in 2, 3, 4 months, but it was like a year lead time sometimes working with the industry. So just getting around that, and also the clinical validation around this is very, very important. As a surgeon talks to a surgeon and say, well, have you proven it? Have you proven it's more effective? Have you proven it's better? There's a lot of science that goes on in the medical industry, which there should be as well. So the fact that we have multiple studies now proving this is like 570 times more efficient in learning VR than reading a PDF, and it's even more efficient than watching a video. So with clinical data that's validating what we're doing right now. So, yeah.
Well, I'll leave you off with this one last question, but as you look at the Vancouver landscape and, kind of, as you pointed out, there's like this crossroads between, say, gaming, now VR, now we also have the VFX industry. We also have, the life sciences sector as well. How is it kind of proving to be like a pretty cool place to be at kind of the crossroads of all these intersecting industries and being able to develop what you guys are developing right now?
I think it's a very exciting time in Vancouver. I think we are a VR AR hub. I think there's a lot of exciting work going across the industries. We're drawing in resources from the film industry. We've got film people working with us as well that are upping our visual standards. Pulling from the video game industry, and also all the schools. All the schools that have been built up over the last 20 years to kind of feed into this have just gotten better and better as well. So it's a great place to come to train and to get experience in these various markets. So it's an exciting time in Vancouver.
I get to have the fun being the journalist following all this stuff, and I agree with you. It's a very exciting time. But Colin, just once again, I want to thank you and just express another congratulations on the award win as well.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be on the show.
Excellent. That's Colin O'Connor. He's Chief Technology Officer at Precision OS. And we will be back tomorrow to speak to our Chief Information Officer of the Year award winner. For now, I'm Tyler Orton, and you can go to biv.com for more stories and more interviews there.